Hey guys, my name is RPGMD. Um, I'm a gamer. A little bit about me: I've been playing video games for a long time. I enjoy a lot of different genres, but I've always particularly loved strategy RPGs. I come from a Fire Emblem background. I've played a lot of those games, really enjoyed them, and so that's what drew me to this game, Triangle Strategy. And I was pretty sure I would like the game, but I've really come to love the game, and definitely one of my favorite games on the Switch for sure. I've put a lot of time into this game. As you can see, I have about 230 hours of gameplay. So I've gotten pretty good at the game, and I've done 6 total playthroughs at this point. I did 4 playthroughs on normal, and then I've done 2 playthroughs on hard mode. I have 2 deathless runs, including a most recent deathless run on hard mode. So um, I've gotten pretty good with a lot of the characters and different combinations of characters. And so I'm planning to do a full run where I play from start to finish on hard mode, new game plus, deathless. Um, and before I start, I just wanted to go over some of my favorite characters to use and why I like to use them and what some of their strengths and weaknesses are. So I want to start with Serenoa. He's your generic Lord character, but he's good at what he does. He has high strength, 56 strength without the strength bracelet, which is tied for the highest in the game, with balanced defenses at 50 apiece and solid HP. He also has the highest luck in the game, so he'll get a lot of random crits from the front, which also increases his damage a little bit, and he has above average speed. Um, with his kit, he can delay things, which is really good. He does really high follow up damage. He's got good single target spike with Hawk Dive, decent AoE damage with Sweeping Slash. He can tank a little bit because of his defenses, and then Counter Stance allows him to kind of get some chip damage in return. Um, he's got strength in numbers, so he's just got 2 extra strength if he's near his teammates, which is really nice. And because he's usually near his teammates, Shielding Stance is really good. It makes your tanks tankier, and it can save your squishies from dying. So all of those skills are really good. And then I think Under Conviction's Banner is probably my favorite skill that he has. Um, it's really, really good. I usually use it at the start of the match, but you can use it throughout the match as well. And basically, you're trading 4 TP to give everyone on your team 1 TP if they're in range. So if you use it at the start of the match, you'll trade 4 TP to give go plus 10 TP throughout your team. So you end up going plus 6. And it can really snowball and make maps a lot easier um, when everybody's starting off with all their ultimate abilities and everything, and it really just gets things going in a positive way for you. You'll see me use it a lot in these maps, and I think it's a game changer for sure. Roland is a very solid unit. He's a high damage dealing unit with good movement. He likes to flank, get behind units, and you can either try to do high single target spike damage or AoE damage against enemies who are lined up. Um, so either way, I think he plays well. 4 dragons and double thrust are really good for single target. Opportune attack is really nice if you can flank enemies successfully. Um, and rush and flash of steel are great for hitting multiple enemies when they're lined up, or if you can flank them and hit them all in the back. Um, so he's quite solid. I don't use him as much just because there's a lot of other good units, but he's really good. Another thing you can do with him is you can put 2 full turn on him, um, get behind an enemy, get opportune attack, double thrust, and 4 dragons, and that's a ton of spike damage. Um, you can also feed him some TP and potentially use 4 dragons twice in a row, which does tons of damage to bosses, and so he's a good unit. I definitely use him on certain maps. He's a little squishy for a melee unit though, but the biggest issue I have with him is he likes to miss key moments. He only has 54 accuracy without the accuracy amulet. So, sometimes he'll miss 4 dragons or he'll just miss normal attacks randomly. But most of the time he hits on most enemies, and it's not a huge detriment to him, but it is something to pay attention to. And a lot of the time I'll run accuracy items on him just for that reason. Benedict is your typical buff unit. You mostly want to use now 2 full turn and dragon shield. I usually use him in team comps where we're generating a lot of TP, so he can use Dragon Shield like every turn or every other turn, which is really, really strong and just buffs your team's defense by a tremendous amount. Twofold turn and now combo with other units really well. Now is really great with charging abilities. It's really great with slow units because I usually make Benedict very fast. Twofold turn's really good with Avlora or Anna, and all the other units too, but especially those two because they don't need TP to use their highest, to do a lot of damage. Frederica, I think she's the second best mage in the game. She does more damage than most of the other mages because she has extra damage in Clear Skies. So it's about a 15% damage bonus. And then she can also, it's situational, but if you have her stand in fire, she gets another 10 to 15% or so damage bonus. So she can do a ton of extra damage. She's got good AoE with Scorch, good single target with Blazing Chains. Pillar of Fire is not bad either for AoE. Flame Shield's pretty good for utility. You can put it on a tank or put it on an off tank and have them do a lot of extra chip damage in retaliation. And then Sunfall is really strong. Hits really, really, really hard. In the sun, its base power is like 560. It's crazy. And you can either use a turn accelerator or just use like a tank to taunt enemies or funnel enemies into a choke. And it absolutely, it can win maps on its own. And you'll see me use it a lot in this playthrough, and it's really good. It's one of my favorite skills in the game. And you can combo it with other AoE skills to really kill enemies pretty quickly. So it's great. She's a great unit. Gila, she's a good healer. She's got good heals for 1 TP. She can spike heal for 3 TP. She can AoE heal, and she can cure status. And then the real gem with her is actually Miraculous Light. It's basically for 4 TP, you put a auto revive on a unit that prevents death and revives them with full HP. It's basically like having a resurrection earring, and she can spam this with certain team comps, so it's very strong. I don't use her as much just because I think Cordelia is a little bit better, but you can combo her with Cordelia, and on certain maps I will use her over Cordelia, or sometimes I just want to use Miraculous Light with a certain team comp, and she fills that niche, so she's good. I think Cordelia's a little bit better, but Cordelia can't use Miraculous Light. And Miraculous Light is very, very good. So Gila always has her niche. Huette, I think she's the best archer in the game. She can blind things, which really messes up enemy archers and enemy melee units. She can Shadow Stitch to root them in place. You can Shadow Stitch melee units and they can't do anything. You can Shadow Stitch the mage and get out of their range and they can't do anything. Shooting Star is really, really good for single target spike at range. It's similar to Archibald's Inescapable Arrow, except it does really high spike damage. And she needs spike damage, and she doesn't get that much from the rest of her kit. So it fills that niche for her, and if you stack that on top of the rest of her kit, I mean, she's really good. Eridor, I think is one of the best units in the game. Definitely S tier unit. Maybe I'll make a tier list at some point, but he'd definitely be at the top of the list for me. Just great. Eats a lot of physical damage. Has great AoE taunts. Provoke is really great for 1 TP. He's got a lot of defensive skills that allow him to eat damage. Almost 80 physical defense, and I'm not even using 2 defense bracelets. And he's got King Shield, which is crazy. It's a 100% taunt AoE that also makes him invulnerable for a turn. And you can keep feeding him TP and spamming this. And that can win maps on its own too. So, crazy good unit. I use him in a lot of my team comps, and I'll definitely show him off a lot throughout this playthrough. Rudolph is not bad. He's a decent archer. The problem with him is he only has 4 range, no matter what you do. And so that's the downside, but he also has traps, which are extremely useful on certain maps. And you'll see me use him in combination with Jens to just spam traps on certain maps that make it a lot easier to clear those maps. The other downside to him is his accuracy is only 55 without the accuracy, or let me just check. Yeah, 53 without the accuracy bracelet. so he'll miss a lot. He'll miss a lot. Um, so that's the thing. But he makes up for that with one of his skills, Those Who Wait. So if he's not moving, he has good accuracy. But um, if you other if you don't do anything to fix his accuracy and you're moving, he can definitely miss, and that's unfortunate. But he's a very good unit, and he does good damage and has good utility. And on some maps, he's definitely fantastic. Quarantine, I think, is the best mage in the game, mainly because of TP on ice. So he can sustain his own TP better than all the other mages in the game. Uh, Frederica is almost as good at that, but she has to get kills, and that's harder to do than just generating ice. Um, he doesn't do quite as much damage as Frederica, but he's got more utility. He's got good AoE just like her, good spike damage just like her. The spike doesn't do quite as much, but it can silence enemies, which is really good. Wall of Ice to kind of slow enemies down. Icy Attune for spike damage if you're close to enemies. Spike Shield of Ice to put an invulnerability shield on a unit. This is really good with units like Ivlora who want to play at low health, or just any unit. I mean, everybody who doesn't want a instance of invulnerability. And if you feed him 1 TP a turn, I mean, he can use that every turn if he's standing on ice. Glacial Moon, very, very, very good. It's similar to Sunfall. It doesn't have a charge, but doesn't do as much damage. The radius is the same. You can combo it with Sunfall to do ridiculous AoE damage to mobs. And if he goes first with the Glacial Moon and then the Sunfall hits, which will always happen because Sunfall has a charge, it will leave a giant puddle behind, which you can abuse with lightning. So the mages can all play off each other in that way. Julio, the one of the 2 dedicated TP batteries in the game, he does a really good job of it. He can either give 1 TP to a unit and buff them, their stats, or give up to 5 TP to one unit. So a lot of people stop using him when they get Medina, but I actually think they work great together. So I use them both on most of my teams, and you'll see the synergy that they have. And I think he's a great unit, and he never fell off for me. So I use him a lot, and he's sturdier than Medina as well, and can do more damage than her. So he has his own niche as well. Really, really good unit, and I'm definitely going to show him off a lot. Milo, really good for crowd control. I like to use her on teams that generate a lot of TP and spam Power of Love as much as possible. That, with Heartstealer, Moon Jump, gives her a ton of maneuverability, and she can either crowd control or just tempt key enemies to either disable them for a while or cause other enemies to target them. So I just did a run where I was playing the Goldenrod on hard mode, and the final boss, Heartstealer was the key ability. It made him waste his abilities on the enemies that were tempted rather than my team, which helped me preserve the Deathless run, and it was just really, really good. So she's a great unit, and Green Mist and Blue Knight are really good as well, but the other units are just the other abilities are just a little bit higher impact. This can shut down mages, shut down healers. This can do a lot of damage to armored units, and poison is pretty solid. So great unit. Really good for crowd control. I don't use her all the time, but when I need crowd control, she's always there. Or on maps where I need high maneuverability. Cordelia, I think she's the best healer in the game. Above and Beyond is really good. If you play Cordelia correctly, and I'll use her quite a bit, and you'll see what I'm talking about. She can really spam Above and Beyond a lot. Even without a battery, if you use self-sacrifice as much as you can, she can use Above and Beyond basically every other turn, which is huge. And what I like to do is I'll use the Bangle of Vitality, and I'll put regen on herself, and that combination gives her back 120 HP a turn, which means she can use self-sacrifice every 2 turns, which means she can use Above and Beyond every 2 turns. And that is really strong, and just it can snowball and make all your units into ridiculous tanks. And you'll see me use her a lot throughout the playthrough. I have Laura, really strong melee unit, really strong single target spike with risky maneuver. You can twofold turn her and double risky maneuver for huge damage. She also wants to get under half, so she can abuse Desperate Strike and Desperate Defense. Um, Desperate Defense halves all damage when she's under half health. I like to stack the Endurance Serum, which does the same thing and stacks. So she's taking 25% damage under half, and that allows her to play relatively safely under half health on hard mode. I also like to give her a Resurrection Earring so that she can play at under half health, and if she dies, she revives. The other thing with her is Lone Wolf. You can play certain team comps with low count units, and she just becomes a boss. Essentially, she gets $10 to $15 stats, and just has ridiculous defense. Basically Eridor defense with 70 plus strength and 40 plus speed, and it's ridiculous. And she's got great AOE with Bloody Cross. She's S tier, great unit. The next unit, Narv, is a really good mage. I don't use him as much just because Quarantine and Frederica are a little bit better in my opinion. But he can use every element. He's got 5 to 6 range on all his spells. Whirlwind has a really big AoE on him because of extending your reach. And Mystic Beam has a range of 1 to 7. Really solid. The only downside to him is he needs to be fed TP. Otherwise he'll have turns where he can't do much. But he's really good, and I'll use him on certain maps and he'll shine. And he's usually the first mage I grab after Quarantine and Frederica. Sometimes I'll use Izana over him, but I think he's about equal to Izana. Medina, really strong TP battery, not much needs to be said about her. She can also use Now to accelerate turns for her teammates. She can, give 5 units 1 TP with an item. She can do that twice if you use double items. And then she combos with Julio extremely well, and I'll show that off a lot. So she's a great unit. She's on most of my teams, and she's one of the best units in the game, no doubt. Jens, I don't use him a lot, but when I do, he's great. Springtrap's really good. Ladder's really good. He's really good at what he does, which is annoy enemies and make ladders and use ladders to stop enemies from getting to certain areas. And he's a pest basically, but he does his job really well. And on the maps where he's good, he's like game breaking. So he's a really good unit. The only downside to him is his magic defense is terrible. It's like Eridor, so you can't get him. He has to stay far away from mages. Maxwell, crazy strong unit. The way I like to play him, basically, is to spam high jump as much as possible. I'll feed him TP and have him feed himself TP with 2 burns, 1 stone, and just spam this as much as you can. That, and he has pretty decent single target spike with triple thrust. And then he's got these 2 abilities for certain uses. If you want to hit an enemy at range without overextending yourself, you can use Lance Hurl, or hit multiple enemies in a row, you can use Run Through. But you mostly want to be using high jump and triple thrust when you're using TP, or traverse if you need to get to high ground or just get extra movement. So that's his damage, which is really good AoE, solid single target. But then he also has a built-in Res Earring, which stacks with other Res Earrings and stacks with the Plume of Immortality and the Gila Res. So the way I like to run in is, depending on the team comp, he'll usually have at least his own revive and a Gila Res sometimes on him with the Plume of Immortality. And if you don't know what this is what you get for beating the game on Deathless, and having a Deathless run. And every time that a unit would die, that unit has a 50% chance of just reviving, and there's no cap on that. So I've had the Plume sometimes revive Maxwell 4 times in a row, right? And then he's still got his own revive to back him up, and if you put Gila Res on him, he's got that to back him up. So because he has at least 1 guaranteed life, and maybe 2 even without a Res Earring, I think he's the best character for the Plume of Immortality, and he's so good. I've used just him, I have Laura and Gila, and I've soloed one of the Mental Mock battles, the Long Trek Mental Mock battle, with just those 3 units. And Avlora was basically a boss because of her stats were crazy jacked up, and Maxwell, I think, was basically immortal. I mean, I think he died 6 or 7 times, and he still had a Gila Res on him at the end of the map. So just crazy good. Archibald, really good DPS archer. He's got 6 range on his normal attacks. If he hits something under half health, he's got a 50% chance to just, kill them from whatever HP they're at. And that can trigger off any of his abilities too. So Inescapable Arrow can trigger that. Arrow Spray can trigger that for an AoE instant kill. He can ignore armor with Edged Arrow. And Piercing Arrow is basically Roland's 4 dragons, but it can hit multiple enemies. So it's harder to use because of the charge, but the payoff is potentially crazy. I don't use it that much, but maybe I should be using it more. But Inescapable Arrow is really his best skill. It basically makes his range the whole map. And it's pretty easy to feed him enough TP to use this every turn. So he's really good, and that's the main reason to use him. The biggest downside to him is his poor movement. So you want to park him in one spot on high ground and probably not move very much for most of the match. Flanagan is really good off tank. I think people don't like him because they try to use him like Eridor, but he doesn't want to do crowd control and all the things that Eridor does. What he does is make your non-tanks into tanks. So he can use Rampart to have all the damage on every unit that's adjacent to him. So everybody gets 50% damage resistance. And then you can stack that with Shielding Stance if you really want to, and then one unit can get 75% damage resistance. But usually just the Rampart is enough. And so he's really good for holding up choke point, or defending high ground, or defending any area. So he's really good, and in a pinch he can also taunt things with Shield Bash. And then Ironclad means that, in combination with the fact that he can't be knocked back, means that if you're holding a choke point, he's taking half damage from everything in front of him, and you can't move him off that point, and anything next to him is taking 50% damage. So it's crazy. He's so strong. He makes every map on the Wolfort domain where you're like defending it from Avlora or from Exham, those maps, he makes those really easy, and I'll show that off in the playthrough. It says technically he's weak to arrows, but he's so tanky, he really doesn't care about arrows. So he's a good unit. Izan is a good mage, mainly because of Rite of Lightning. Big single target damage spike with a 60% chance to paralyze. That's always good. The problem with her though is she's only got 4 range and only really does single target effectively. Rite of Wind means she's got to be really close, and closer than you want to be with her. And Rite of Thunderstorms is tricky to use unless you're abusing a certain character that plays with time. Rite of Thunderstorms is not bad, but it's kind of cumbersome. It costs 5 TP, you have to charge, and its accuracy is kind of inconsistent. So most of the time you're going to be using Rite of Lightning, and it's fine, but it means she only has 4 range. Every other mage in the game can reach out to 6 range. So that's the downside to her, but she's quite good, and she's overpowered on any map with water. Lionel is really good for crowd control. Ruffle Feathers is a 100% AoE taunt, which is huge. Shuts down mages. It can shut down melee attackers as well. Endless Speech is AoE shutdown. It can either sleep enemies or silence them, or both. It has a 60% chance at both, and just rolls independently. Really good against mages, but you can use it against any unit, and it's going to be pretty good. At worst, it will either put them to sleep or reduce their damage, or both, or in a mage's case, either of those things kind of take them out, which is why it's so good for mages. Golden Opportunity is basically Power of Love with high damage. I don't use it that much, but you really can. In endgame, 7,500 coins is not that much. You could realistically use this like once a map and not really feel it. And there's usually spoils on the map, so if Lionel's picking them up, you're getting more gold than you would have had if you weren't playing Lionel. So, it can be probably like a couple thousand gold less than what it is on the card. And it's one of the strongest abilities in the game, so it can flip maps around for you. So definitely worth using if the opportunity arises. And when you add that to his kit, like, he's an already strong unit, but having this crazy strong like ability at your disposal when you need it kind of puts him over the top. So great unit. I use him a lot for crowd control, and he's one of the better units in the game. So this unit, I'm not gonna talk too much about him. Everybody knows he's broken. I don't use him much because he is so broken. I'll probably use him a couple times, maybe during the playthrough, just to show off what he can do. But just real quick, to give you an example, I play Avlora on most of my team comps. So one thing that Quahog can do, if you stack a bunch of buffs on a unit, he can keep resetting them by turning back time. So like for example, on Avlora, you can put Dragon Shield on her, Gila's auto res on her, and twofold turn on her, so she can attack twice, invincible for one hit, and if she dies, he revives. Now Quahog can keep resetting that on her every single turn as long as he has enough TP, and that just makes her into a ridiculous like monster. And you can do that on multiple other units too, but Avlora is just one example because she uses all those buffs so well. He's got a decent damaging attack for 1 TP. No other mage has a damaging attack for 1 TP. He can teleport himself or the enemy. You can stop time, unfreeze Izana, and have her nuke everything. Her Rite of Thunderstorms has 100% accuracy with stop time. So it's just like it hits everything on the map for 100 damage or so and can potentially paralyze them, and that is ridiculous. And you can, if you do that multiple times, that like wins the map for you. And then reverse space time is crazy. In a nutshell, you can have like all your best units just spamming their ultimates, and then have him reverse time, and they'll get all their TP back. And you can keep doing this with certain combinations, like him with Julio. And as long as enemies are within range, you know, you can use all your ults again, kill some, reverse time again, and they'll get all their TP back. And it's really, really strong. So you can also do funny stuff like warp a boss on top of a building where the boss can't get off, and then they're just stuck there. You can also put missed opportunity on a boss and keep reversing time so it never goes away. Just really, really strong. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that hasn't even been discovered yet. But I don't really use him very much just because he's so overpowered. But I'll probably try to use him during the playthrough just to show off some of the things he can do. Alright, so that's my run through of my favorite characters to use in Triangle Strategy. Starting with the next video, I'm going to be doing a full playthrough of New Game Plus hard mode without any deaths, other than, you know, auto revives, not counting as deaths. But nobody's going to die, as in, you know, turn into dust on any of the maps. Okay, that's the goal anyway. So if you enjoy the video, please leave a comment or a like. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and hopefully, you know, this will be a fun playthrough, and I hope to get some conversation going about strategies. And I've really enjoyed this game, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the playthrough. Thanks for watching, everybody.